Good morning, and welcome to this live book launch. It's my pleasure to introduce a book, China and the West, Unraveling 100 Years of Misunderstanding by Yue He Parkinson. It's published by Bite Size Books. It's available on Amazon at £6.99. I've known Yue for some years. She's a really helpful observer and commentator on the Chinese scene. And is a really good antidote to a lot of the China literature, the vast numbers of books now coming out about China, mostly by Western people like me, who don't often capture the nuances around language and culture. And here's somebody who is deeply immersed both in the Chinese way of thinking and doing things and also in the West. And not too many people have that unique perspective and write well about it. So I want to ask Yue a few questions to introduce her book, and maybe just a very basic one, which is, what motivated you to write it?
Right. First of all, I have to say thank you for Bite Size Book offered this idea to me. So this March, when I got this initiate idea, I just thought, well, what should I write? Then all of a sudden, I realized I got a really good chance to write down what I have experienced and learned from British society for the last 17 years. And compared to Chinese, where I come from, that culture. And at that time, because I have been doing writing for FT Chinese for almost 10 years. When I was FT writing, I only introduced what is British culture and politics. So that helped me to understand British society very well. I cannot say 100% well, but I can say 80% perhaps. So that gave me the confidence when Paul Davis said, can you write a book about Chinese politics? I say, yeah, why not? I'm able to do it. I'm ready. Perhaps I'm waiting for this chance to tell the people, especially tell the West. The China you know is not the China actually it is. So I got this chance because from my experience, China is in this side, British or the West is in this side. And for a long, long time, for British or the Western to say anything about China, you are observing China from this angle, which doesn't make any sense to Chinese. So what is the proper way to introduce China to the West or let the Western or British understand China better or in a justified way? I would say the better way, the better point is in the middle. That's where I am almost be there because I'm still by Chinese side, but much closer to British side already. So that gave me a better position to write this book because
Good. Yeah, but at the core of your book is the idea that there are some absolutely fundamental misunderstandings. So what are the biggest misunderstandings, and can you explain how we reconcile them?
the biggest misunderstanding. Sorry, I catch a cold. I lost my voice yesterday, so I'm lucky I'm still be able to talk. So please forgive my voice. Right, the fundamental thing is about politics understanding. So for the Westerns and the British, normally, especially Biden called China autocracy, right? That's a very Western, how to say, terminology. It doesn't exist really in Chinese culture. In China, we call 大一统. That's the name of the political system. Of course, after the Qing dynasty demised in 1911, and we went into another new era, which is different from the 2,000 years ago. However, the fundamental thing here is because for the last 200 years, I mean, before the Opium War in 1839, Chinese community or Chinese culture basically has no much connection with the Western culture because too far away, the geography, reason, the desert, the mountains, the long distance. Although trade happens, because we have a silver road on the land and from the sea. However, politically, culturally, these two cultures didn't have much connection until the Opium War. So after the war, China was defeated. So the China was kind of like a push into the international order set up by the Westerns and later by the America. And today, all of a sudden, we see the two world power are competing. People, of course, is confused because it happened too quick. The fundamental thing is you don't understand. I mean, when I say you, I mean, say the Westerns. You don't understand Chinese culture. You always say China is communism. Communism is the wrong word to call China because that only lasts for a few decades. You really need to understand China is a Daitong society with 2,000 years controlled by one emperor. And everybody's under control. And also, many times it's very efficiency. And many times when they build a new dynasty, it's very powerful and rich. So if you know that, you will have a new perspectives about China.
But you'll quite rightly say that there's a fundamental difference going back, hundreds of years. But actually, attitudes have changed very markedly in the last, say, 5 years. I was in a government that had very good relations with China. We called it the Golden Era. The public opinion in the West was positive towards China, but it's gone very sour very quickly. Can you explain why you think that's happened?
Yes, so I'm so sorry for that. I was one part to report about the 10 golden years between China and America. Britain. And I know you were one part of the politicians to build up this policy, and you are a strong promoter for that. The things changing so fast, not just you, including me. I cannot believe the reality. It took me 1 year to accept it, understand it, what happened. We used to be in a world run by the Western, by the American power. All of a sudden, China is coming to compete and want to fight for the world power. So what happened for me? Simple like that. American has problem, and also because you can see the Capitol Hill riot. Is it this year? Right, this year. Yeah, that happens. Right, that shocked everybody in democratic country because you said what happened to the lighthouse of democracy. And the second is, yes, when you were in cabinet in number 10, at that time, Chinese economy wasn't that powerful yet. Although it's only just 10 years ago, but so different from today. 10 years ago, no Chinese would daring to say we're going to challenge America. We're not that powerful with China. At that time, only few people will say we are strong enough, right? That's why you can see China can build the really good relationship with you and would not challenge America. But today, China, I think, is much, much more confident. You talk to Chinese today, economy, they feel they are so, again, confident. A simple case, long time ago, when Hong Kongese came to China 40 years ago, we look up to them. If anybody immigrant to Hong Kong or marry a Hong Kong man, well, I think that is like a big deal. But today, what happened? Things changed upside down, totally 40 years. So for the last, I would say, few years, since everything changed. The political, economic issue all changed. And also, one final issue, China always has a double emotion about the white. On one hand, we love it. On the other hand, we don't like it. We even hate it because we have after Opium War, that emotion has been with us for 100 years.
You talk about China becoming more confident, and I often hear people in China saying we want to be accepted as equals in the world system, and that's very understandable. A lot of Westerners now, however, talk about China as being, quote, aggressive. So is that another misunderstanding?
Uh, I think you see in my book, I use the racial pride to
Mm.
describe this competition between China and America. I think what you are saying is right. China deserves to have a respective and equal treatment in the international order, which they didn't get it yet. So that's what they are striving for. Because for me to initiate a racial pride idea is after I watching in British society when all the minorities are equal, and especially the BLM, when they're fighting and fighting for more rights, more equality, more fairness, especially during the last year in the pandemic, they can still go on strike. And people and the media, some of them, I mean, they still stand by their side. So that made me feel BLM is really, really powerful. That even more powerful, more important than the pandemic. So that gave me the idea actually in the Western society, striving for minority equality is justified, is supported by the majority and the media. But look at the world order, where is the chaos? Of course, we know it's anarchy. American is the boss, and it could be the boss, and could not be in the future. We don't know. But for anybody under the boss, definitely would like to have a higher and more equal position. But there's no one in the world order that level to have a campaign because this is not democracy atmosphere in the world order. So China has to do it by himself. That's my understanding. And I think it's justified. Because for me, I'm a yellow person. I'm Chinese. Coming here, although I didn't suffer from racism, but I can see people still don't really see me as equal. I can feel that. I don't like it.
So I have to say, I feel a bit uncomfortable with this phrase racial pride. I mean, as a white person, I would never dare to say that in the UK. It's fairly close to what we would call racialism. And indeed, many people in the West, after our terrible experience in the Second World War and before, have got rid of the whole idea of race as being an irrelevant factor. So, what do the Chinese mean when they talk about the Chinese race? Is it something that you feel uncomfortable with, or you simply feel, as you put it, a sense of pride?
So here is a big, big misunderstanding again between China and the West. So for such a sensitive issue in the West and in Britain, it's nothing. I cannot say nothing, but it's not important in China. You know why? Because the majority people in China are Han people like me, yellow people. We have 56 minorities, but they all are one part of Chinese and they look like us. And we don't have immigrants like the West and like Britain. So we don't have that very complicating equal fair issue between different race. So before I came to Britain, I didn't know this issue of racism. I only heard we yellow people will be despised in the West. We need to suffer. We need to put up to with. But I didn't know that it's a serious problem between white people and the black people and the yellow people, whatever people. It's a big, sensitive, important issue in the West. So I learned a lot after I arrived in Britain in 2004. So for Chinese, actually, when I say racial pride is that can justify Chinese competition with China, Chinese don't understand that.
Okay, well, let's develop this point about your having been in the West, which is to ask you how the Chinese see Britain. Well, I was quite amused to read in your book that a lot of Chinese people still think we're in the 19th century with ruled by the aristocracy. I can't believe, particularly after your good reporting of the West in China, that people still believe that. So, what is the Chinese perception of what is actually a very different society with a lot of social mobility, where the aristocracy no longer have any power? How are these strange views? How have they persisted?
So it's, I know you will feel weird when I say that, but you know what? When I came here, I believe here is run by our aristocracy, all right? Because that's what we told in China. The history books talk about that, magazine talk about that, the newspaper talk about that. People just believe because you have a royal family. And Chinese people don't really know royal family don't have a freedom of speech. So they feel here is still monarchy, although it's a democracy country as well. So actually, it's not just a problem for Chinese. I think American as well. American love the royal family. Of course, they understand British better than Chinese. All right. So let me carry on. When I came to here, I told my husband, I say, you guys are so naive. You were controlled by aristocracy, and you don't know it. They abuse you. Do you know that? My husband's so surprised. You understand now why? But at the time, I was very serious. I said, goodness me, you were treated by the aristocracy. You don't know it, how wonderful you are. Then I start to do the interview for FT Chinese. I interview those aristocracy. I interview in their castle. I talk to them. I talked to one, I talked to two, I talked to three. I realized, oh God, they need to work. They don't have servants. Their power has gone. Can you see them in the media? No, the majority, you don't. You only see them in a very rare place. They must have gone. When I had that idea, I remember it's 2018. I want to write an article about aristocracy in Britain has gone. I talk about this idea to my FT Chinese editor. She's based in China. She cannot believe it. She's so hesitating to publish my writing. However, so lucky because of FT Chinese, because it's a half West, half the how to say more westernized. She finally published. That's how her name is Yue Li. That's how Chinese media, state media, start to notice, oh God, our stock is gone in Britain. Is that true? But FT Chinese published, this must be true. That's how it starts. So Vince, I'm not joking.
Okay, well, let's switch from the British aristocracy to what's happening in China. One of the most interesting bits of your book was when you introduced this idea of the womb vote. I laughed about this, but this is basically women exercising their ability to exert power by how many children they have. So can you explain this, how China has progressed very rapidly from one child maximum to three child maximum to a duty to have three children, and how Chinese women particularly are responding to this very rapid change of direction?
I think when I gave this word, I writing down by British way because it's a right. It's not a word coming from Chinese reports because people would not think about that. People just, the women don't want to have third children. They do it just because natural choice. I'm tired. I don't have enough money. I need to enjoy myself. I need to leave some space and time, money for myself. So having the third child is a burden. So I don't want to do it. Simple like that. But look at the whole big picture about Chinese child policy. That is a bit shocking actually, because when I was in university in China in 1990s, I was a medical student. So I remember I have a friend study in another apartment. Their job is to watch people only have one child. That was in 1990s. That's a proper job, very important job. You can find people if you have more than two children, especially you are working for the government and lost your job as well. So it's a serious issue. Everybody in the world knows it. The thing changes dramatically is I remember a few years ago when Chinese government said, all right, now, all right, you can have the second. I heard a voice from FT again say, people don't want to have second one, too hard. But that's it. No one really gave a lot of attention about that until this year. When the third child is allowed to have, that policy came through. I see on WeChat, my information about WeChat, I see a few reporting to say no against this idea, say they are not going to do it. I just feel, wow, people are really tired. You know why? Because after living in Britain for relaxing time, not a tiger mother anymore, no much obligation, not much duty, only rights, like me. Excuse me. It's impossible to go back to China to live my friend's life in China because there's so much duty. You have duty for your parents, for your children, for the society, for the country. Before this vote happened, I just feel, oh, my Chinese friends, they are so tolerant. I so admire you. You can do it. But today, when that vote happened, I said, all right, that's the limit. That's the limit. They don't want to carry on. They are still human beings. They need to have their own life. That's what happened.
Yes, but one thing I didn't really understand in your book, but you can perhaps explain it, is the connection between this womb vote, in other words, women rebelling against the idea of having to have lots of children because the government now wants it, with the new theme of common prosperity, which
Right,
in
yes.
what I see as a kind of social democratic idea of a bit more
Absolutely.
equality and so on. So what is the connection between the two?
Right. I think common prosperity was an idea since Deng Xiaoping, but China hasn't started to do it because they want to, for a long time, for the last 4 decades, I think the money and the power were the main issue. But today, this year, we see the cost. The cost is people are tired. We see 内卷 躺平, which means people would like to lie down, don't want to work anymore. We see that happen. So that's the reason, I think, linked to common prosperity with the women's vote, because the government finally realized people are tired. They deserve to have a better life, not just money, but less competitive, less pressure. Let them have a better life quality, not just money. That's why that policy was launched very quick. I remember just a few weeks immediately. But that gave me idea, say, wow, China has future, because if it is on socialism, watch democracy country. You need to see who can compete longer.
But you talk in your book about Chinese workers being the victims of development of the kind of globalized economy. But from the outside, we get the impression that Chinese workers are now doing much better. There's a labor shortage, so their wages are going up, and standards of living are improving. So in what sense have workers been victims?
Right, here's two standards now. When I say that, I was comparing to British human rights standard. By Chinese standard, of course, everybody, 1.4 billion people, their life quality is improving. The thing is, it has never been recognized by the West. I know some Chinese officials, they feel so unfair. Say, we have done so much, the Western don't recognize what we have achieved. I said, what can you say? The British media, they judge their own government by a human rights issue. So why they criticize them like an enemy? So they will not be soft to you either. That's the only issue. So that I have to say there's two standards here. Even when people say, what is the standard of being poor in China and in the West are so different. The poor people in Britain, I think, can be middle class in China. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but that's what I feel.
But in your book, you're very critical of economic globalization, and basically you take the view the West is being sucked into something that is not a good thing, which is a very odd opinion because economists like me would say globalization is good for everybody, you know, free trade, free movement of capital. We have benefited, lower prices, economic growth. We should all be getting back to economic globalization and you know, working with China to keep it going. So why do you warn us about the dangers of economic globalization when it appears to most of us to be a good thing?
Right. I thank you so much because that's why you are sitting here, would like to talk to me. I so feel honored and appreciate that. The thing is, I'm living in Britain. I'm not living in China. I see the political attack on human rights about China every second, every day. So I can see these two conflicts between economic globalization and democracy. They are getting on badly. I mean, they need how to say they cannot compromise. That's why I see this country. I understand you are sitting supporting economic globalization, which China is the most how to say strongest push behind that. But this book is for English readers, so I just want to show the balance.
But if we were going to try to work constructively with China, it would involve China following international rules and operating within the rules of the WTO and compatible with European Union objectives. Do you think that's possible? That China will wants to become a global citizen in economic and other terms, or do you think that the gulf is so big that that's not possible?
I think you are so when you ask a question, everybody wants to know, including the Chinese leader and the American leader, because the answer at the end is who is going to be the leader of the world order, who is going to win, and when they win, whoever they will set out the rule. For your question, I don't think I'm the right person to answer it, but I can say China is never be one part of European country. European country was came from a war country. You fight to each other for over 1,000 years until you have democracy. So democracy saved the West. And now you have EU and you are in peaceful. That is amazing achievement. But China is not that. First of all, China is not aggressive as European country historically. And the second, China has its 大一统. They may go another way to find a world order. What is the new world order? I don't know. Everybody, I can see in China now the intellectuals that they are kind of like suggesting, oh, after we become the king, we should do this, we should do that. But the government didn't say anything. So everybody's guessing. I just feel, wow, when I'm in 2021, we are witness this ongoing competition. It's our time to watch a
But yes,
historical event.
the pessimists are saying, the pessimists in America and in China, is that there has to be a winner and there has to be a loser. The idea that we can both be winners is regarded as a little naive, but surely it's possible to have good collaboration on trade, on dealing with global warming, nuclear proliferation, to have a what you could call a win-winner relationship rather than a winners and losers, or am I just being hopelessly optimistic when I say that?
Sorry, I think you are absolutely right. For a Chinese living in Britain, I absolutely hope China and the West are still in harmony. It is not, so it's awkward for me actually. But a little bit bright thing is you can see Biden and the President Xi, they talk on phone. So they want to manage the competition and didn't upheld into a conflict. So that's a good thing. And also, like you said, the climate change need the whole world to cooperate together. So we are maybe seeing a new competition of the new world orders. So we don't know. We just pray. We hope peace still will be with us.
Okay, well, on that note, it's sadly I have to draw this to a conclusion. We've had our half an hour, and I think you've given us a very good flavour of what this book's about. So let me just remind the audience that this is a book by Bite Size Books. It's called China and the West, Unraveling 100 Years of Misunderstanding, and it's available on Amazon at £6.99. So thanks to Yue for very clear, quite pungent answers. I feel wiser for having listened to you and from having read the book. And I want to thank the audience for listening in. I think it's been a really good session. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much, Sir Vince. Always be an honor to talk to you.